Nevertheless, it's time to jump into round number 4 here at the Battle Hardened in Milwaukee, put on by MinMaxGames, and Patrick versus Michelle. Michelle playing Vynnset herself, and it looks like we've got things underway, starting off really, really strong with exactly kind of how you want to start things off. The old rune chant incantation.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to start, again, creating a lot of those rune chants, and initially with the Vynnset ability of just having to banish a card, creating a rune chant out of the gate. Darthia going to be leaning pretty much almost exclusively on that Dawnblade. Some of them are going to pack perhaps something like a Nourishing Emptiness or some kind of razzle-dazzle hidden away there, but ultimately it's going to be a lot of smoke and mirrors play, a lot of that kind of rabbit out of a hat. What you see is not what you get with Dawnblade. It's coming in for just a casual 3. You think that's all it is, but So Michelle's going to have to play basically a kind of 2 steps ahead to see what Patrick wants to do, opening out here with Out for Blood.
No, you're good.
Now, there's some seriously powerful things that both of these heroes can do, and if you want proof of that, I just want you to go watch the Atlanta Battle Hardened game that we put Darthia on stream, and Josh Lau did perhaps the largest sequence of Dawnblade counters I've ever seen, but here
Dawnblade +1.
That's right, but it was like Dawnblade plus 12. Like, hit it again.
Dawnblade +1.
I want to say thank you very much to Morgan Freeman for providing the voice work for a lot of these.
No, sorry, that was the guy who did the voice for the kills in Halo.
Oh, no. Capture the flag. Capture the flag. Kilimanjaro. Blue team has the flag.
He always had flag. Anyway, Route being played here and resolving for the buff there and sending it on over to Vynnset. None of the Vynnset. Now having to play something called Nebula Blade? What is that weapon? Well, I thought this was Rosetta Thorn.
Well, Nebula is actually the sister of Gamora, daughter of Thanos.
I do know that.
Yeah, and but Nebula Blade, on the other hand, the other option here essentially was the Flail of Agony. That's a lot of what Vynnset typically leans on, but Nebula Blade taking it back over here. It's 2 to attack. When it hits, you create a rune chant, and arcane damage and rune chants is oftentimes what Vynnset wants to lean on here.
Spoiler alert, that was the first Runeblade weapon ever created, interestingly enough. Or at least ever released, I should say. But yes, Nebula Blade now making its way back in, which is super fun. The other strange thing is, like, there are many different Runeblade weapons that you could play, like Dread Scythe or Reaping Blade, and yet we're just back to Nebula Blade. You know, it was all sort of pushed out of favor simply because we had access to the very, very powerful Rosetta Thorn, which just kind of pushed every weapon out of the limelight.
All right, we're drawing back up over here is Michelle, and 4 of those rune chants are stacking up here, and we're starting off again. It's usually non-attacks and beefing up the Dawnblade, plus there's all the extra spice that basically happens after the fact. It's just something dangerous when there's a warrior player, a Darthia, with floating resource and a card and arsenal or something like that. You never know what you're going to get over here, but Sharpened Steel ×2 is making this Dawnblade absolutely hyper aggressive.
What a draw, because he had the third one in hand as well. So Sharpened Steel, pay the third one to play the Dawnblade. Now you're just hoping that they don't have the 0 cost Iron Song response in hand, but you're going to cover it for 6, taking 3, and passing on over. Now, the interesting thing about Vynnset is she very much needs a 2-card hand to function, because without that 2-card hand, unless you're playing the 1 card and it just so happens that your 1 card is Rune Gate and you have the Rune Chance, but without that 2-card hand, you can't be pitching into things, you can't be playing. But here we're going to drop the Deathly Wail to tick up that counter on the Rune Chance to 5. We have a really good situation. Oh, and there's the tick up to 6. We have a really good situation here because we could choose to... oh, no, it looks like we're going to pay off the Tunic resource. I was going to say we could pitch away the card in hand to play the Envelope in Darkness, or you can call it an Envelope. If you wanted to say it wrong, you could call it an Envelope and instead just jam that down. But here we're just going to play out the entirety of the hand and send Runic... Is that Runic Reaping? No, Runic what? I always forget
Reckoning.
Reckoning into the Deathly Wail.
It's Runic Reckoning into Deathly Wail here. And it's coming in with a 7 Rune Chant Chaser, which is pretty nasty. That has to be resolved first, actually. So you have to deal with it. And, you know, if you get caught with red hands or you get caught with non-efficient ways to actually block this is where a lot of this damage is actually going to be pushed through. Michelle has been played very defensively, but she has accumulated quite a stash of these rune chants here. But the Deathly Wail is also looking pretty nasty, as the Runic Reckoning is also going to be creating a big attack here. 11 physical, 7 arcane. So Michelle was on the receiving end for a lot of this. However, this is where the payback is coming in strides.
There have been a lot of people, I think, picking up and running out Vynnset recently over the past week or so. And there have been a lot of people that have been doing so at, you know, just having these big, giant turns on Vynnset. And that's something that Vynnset can do rather consistently, is be able to do what you see here by establishing, Mara Farah says, let's go Vynnset, by establishing, you know, very powerful effects like Runeblood Incantation to generate the consistent rune chant builders, and then just throwing giant attacks turn after turn. The problem comes down in lower life totals, and in lower life totals, then Vynnset has to play a lot more constricted. So if you can get this early lead on life and an early like tempo advantage, Vynnset can just roll you out of the game, but it really is up to you know, staying high on your life totals to do so.
Even playing as a very defensive, you know, like playing Bravo into this, playing very defensive, trying to block out as much as possible. It's incredible how these turns can really get out of control to a degree where even with all blue 3 blocks, you are really, really going to have to be fed real, you know, she just force feeds you rune chants that it becomes exceptionally difficult to actually just waltz through it. But there is a situation eventually where banishing cards out of the hand, if there's a hand where that card that you're banishing doesn't really help you, it's not a Rune Gate card, it can't be played from Banish Zone, you can have a problematic situation over here. Nonetheless, creating all these rune chants, sending attack that is cut up in different ways becomes very cumbersome for a player like Patrick here on Darthia to navigate. Now, you get around that by just sort of maybe blowing out your opponent, but you got to put the work into the Dawnblade. Michelle has been very good at sort of blocking, and now the Dawnblade with no counters is not as scary as it might be.
Playing and leading off with Mauvrian Skies, this is a big turn, because any turn you get to start with a Mauvrian Skies into a Rune Gate attack, particularly one that here is going to blow up the arsenal if that's not a defense reaction on this exact moment, means that she could just close the chain after damage is resolved and blow up that arsenal with impunity. That is very, very good. And this turn is going to continue past this because we have a 2-card hand and we have the go again on the Widespread Destruction. So 4 rune chants. If any of those rune chants leak through, that arsenal is not long for the world unless it's a D-react.
So just so that I know. Okay, that's where I was going next. Okay.
All right, well, I was trying to ignore it. However, Ethan has brought this to my attention, which I will now bring to the attention of everyone here on stream, which is that if Vynnset wins, I need to do my best Deathly Wail impression. Can you bring up Deathly Wail so everybody knows just the absolute sheer terror that I'm going to be injecting into the internet?
Yeah, we all need to see that.
Yeah, well, I'll try my best. I don't know if my chest can open up to that sort of large purple cavity like that, but I'll try. That's a lot of...
That's his mouth.
That's the mouth, yeah.
Oh,
that's
my
the
bad.
mouth. You just have to drop your jaw.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Well, since I'm not a boa constrictor, I'll try my best.
You try your best. That's all you can do.
I get it. I have a big mouth. I get it.
That's all you can do. Just try your best. But that's the kind of big turn that I think Vynnset players try to consistently have, and this is a great draw up. You have Deathly Wail, you've got another Runeblood Incantation you can establish on the board. Those are so key for your overall strategy, and Patrick's just drawing up and passing, and now Michelle deciding how she wants to you know, play this next turn out, but definitely going to want to establish another one of those Runeblood Incantations.
Darthia is a hero that honestly I'm really becoming more and more intrigued by. I love, you know, Flesh and Blood, all the heroes play so uniquely for the most part. I mean, basically within the classes, maybe they're kind of similar to a degree, but Darthia as a warrior and how it leans on that one weapon is very fascinating to me, because it's such a unique hero in the play style and leaning on a weapon where your opponent knows what your game plan is. He knows what you want to do, but in terms of how you sort of create this bluffing and such, it really creates a mind game situation that I'm really into. However, I mean, I feel like Darthia has a very easy sort of barrier of entry to get into that hero and play it, but mastering it, seeing those players like Josh Lau and such really take it to another level, that's the aspect. Much like just seeing not in the previous round. Seeing Lucas play Arachne to that level, I'm like, man, I really want to try to pick up Arachne, and this is the kind of thing that I've seen now with Darthia. That's a hero that I definitely want to check out more.
Yeah, I think the judge is coming to is coming over to resolve the issue that I think chat pointed out when we pitched to stop rune chants. We instead just sent those to the graveyard instead of actually pitching them. Nevertheless, even if we're resolving that by just putting those onto the bottom or just saying that they are now there somehow, whatever the judge rules, still having to look down the barrel of another red Deathly Whale, threatening 6 and 3 rune chants. That's 9 damage. That is quite scary.
Yeah. So there's, again, what people might not understand is when you are playing at a table and you're just playing against, it's just you and your opponent, there's not as many outside sort of influences that sort of penetrate into your mind and maybe just kind of add as extra distraction. Playing on stream, you are well aware that there are plenty of people out there that are going to be watching these games and such, and that does influence you to the degree of it kind of freezes you up. And listen, it's happened to me. It's happened to other players out there.
I've felt it before, certainly.
Definitely. So again, we just appreciate the fact that these players are willing to come on camera and play the game for our enjoyment and for to do it this way. So,
and also keep in mind too that we went and found exactly what you asked for. We were finding a Vynnset player that we can get on stream, and Michelle here is really starting to kind of gain control of this tempo and this momentum in this game by sending just a casual 9 attack that's going to generate more rune chants on the back end. It's going to ask for cards. We're going to see run through plus a sink below here to try and cover some of this damage up and not take excess. But because the rune chants went through, you do, when the chain closes, generate a new rune chant off of that trigger and effect on Deathly Whale.
You got to think here that Patrick is possibly just waiting for one kind of just break in this relentless onslaught. Michelle has been laying it on thick turn after turn in various different ways of physical damage, arcane damage. I think what Darthia is looking for here is something where it's just like, okay, it's just 6, or it's just, like maybe I can give up a card, but I need to build up this Dawnblade. That's what we have to do here. So we're opening up with just basically the casual naked Dawnblade, just 3. Yep. No extra sprinkles, no baseline of non-attacks to beef it up. But with 1 float and I believe 1 card in hand over here.
Well, I like this play because the card he has in hand is Glistening Steelblade, and this is most certainly going to go in the arsenal. You would not want to lead out on a 1-card hand after playing Glistening Steelblade and just not get extra value off it. So he's going to try and set up for a 5-card hand, and exactly what you said, hope that your opponent doesn't just blow you out on a second turn with something crazy. But looking at her hand, she has the second widespread destruction, and he's squirming in the chair because Patrick knows that his arsenal, yet again, might not be long for the world, because there's the 3rd rune chant. That puts widespread destruction online. She has a Mauve Skies. She has the capability of sending that into the Nebula Blade as well. I believe she has 2 reds in hand, or maybe that one of those Mauve Skies, or that Mauve Skies is a blue. Nope, it's just going to be yellow. She's going to drop that down. Going to give widespread destruction the go again, and the on hit as well with making more rune chants. But the 3, this is going to immediately threaten the chain close, blow up the arsenal play that he was just desperately hoping he would avoid this turn.
Okay, so the thing about widespread destruction and why this is so threatening is that it's not an on-hit effect. It is if your opponent lost any life, you banish a card from their arsenal. There's 3 rune chants coming in tow over here, plus there's a go again effect on this, and if this hits, well, goodbye to your arsenal. If the rune chants hit, goodbye to your arsenal. There's another action after this fact. In this case, if Patrick doesn't catch a blue here to block the rune chants, then that's going to be 2 cards to just sort of shore that up, and it's not really all that great. But we're going to go ahead and drop in some more rune chants here. Why not?
No, so he covered up the arcane barrier effect by putting that blue, and there it is. There, good. They caught it this time. That should be pitched, and it should go to the bottom of the deck whenever that happens. And he does successfully dance around it and is able to prevent that from occurring. I do believe those rune chants now are expended, and then they were recreated off of the play of the Read the Runes, which is a great alternative to the play line that she had originally drawn up, and just sending Nebula Blade after this dealt some damage. And another great play. Having that at the backswing in the pocket, reduced rune chant is basically a 0 for 4 in this case, because it is reduced since we did have the rune chants, and it gives you another rune chant. So it's just all Vynnset so far in this game.
Well, again, and Patrick is being patient over here because of exactly what you mentioned. It's like, hey, I've got a really big card here to potentially kind of fuel a very potent turn, but you keep sending these awful, awful situations my way. And we're going to banish another card over here, and then we're going to create another rune chant, and this is going to be really nasty. But again, what did you say was in Arsenal?
He has a Glistening Steelblade, and he did a very good job of protecting that Glistening Steelblade because that is his power card in a matchup like this where you just want to force the Vynnset player into like a full block scenario so that they give up complete tempo and lose all their rune chants or lose many of their rune chants. It's sort of like a house of cards. It just eventually just folds under the pressure of, just losing your hand. But sending the Beseech the Demagon, which is a card that you don't see played very often, but you get to just pick an attack action in Banished and give it +3. And not only that, I believe she paid into Vynnset, losing the life, which means that this is a guaranteed extra rune chant that she will create because she lost a life. She's forcing a life loss off of the Darthia player, so it's guaranteed to hit and give her 2 rune chants on the backswing, which on an innocuous turn like this one that we're seeing, this is actually a great little lineup.
Deathly Whale off the back of the plus value from Beseech the Demagon. 5 rune chants as well. Patrick's been on the receiving end. I mean, it has been, besides the double sharpened steel turn, what has he really put together over here? There hasn't even been a second swing of the Dawnblade in this game so far. It's just been 3-3-3. But Patrick has been just very patient, playing a fairly defensively over here, waiting for those big turns. And we've seen what those big turns can be. You know, swinging twice with a Dawnblade, having those attack reactions to really kind of go over the top and play that kind of sneaky game, as it were. But Patrick's just dumping his hand on the defensive because at a certain point, Steven, there's going to be a situation where that Dawnblade's going to swing twice. It's going to start to gain a counter. Then the follow-up turn is going to be juicier, where if that Dawnblade attacks again, it becomes harder and harder for Michelle to maintain not just tempo, but also just stay in this game. So the hardest part, though, are those first few steps with the Dawnblade. Because once you have a Dawnblade with 2 counters on it, then you're happier to go ahead and take damage because you know that the follow-up turns are going to be massive.
Great usage of Funeral Moon at instant speed because both heroes have lost life. We've met that condition of playing it at instant speed. And what that does is it sets us up to that 3 rune chant hand. We just stole the entire hand, and now we've drawn into our first pummel. Unfortunately, we've drawn 2 pummels at the same time, but we've drawn into our first pummel of the game, and this could be a moment that we could really take advantage of our tempo and just slam down some big swings here. Taking up to the 5 rune chants after the banish, and then I believe we are going to send that big attack. Let's see what she plays from the arsenal first. An envelope in darkness, if you say it that way. Or you could say envelop. It works either way, apparently.
You know, you're lucky because I removed the bleep button from the soundboard to make room for stuff like this, which we'll probably see this turn.
Yes, we are.
I would have bleeped you if you say envelop again, just FYI.
What's amazing is that Ethan removed the bleep button when I'm in the booth. That's a smart move. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But ultimately, you're right.
Here it is, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to see a pummel on a Vynnset, and you know what? It doesn't even matter because the discard is irrelevant. Instead, we're just pushing extra damage. And we're dropping the other pummel in.
You could say pummel, you could say pumel. I mean, both of those are definitely possible, even though they're not. But yeah,
just but like envelope versus envelop.
But no, they're not. It's like saying, oh well, you can call it a dog or you can call it a cat. No, one of those is right.
You're correct.
So
it is. Which one is correct, Flake?
I don't know because I don't know what we're looking at.
Okay, never mind.
But it's definitely not pumel.
Okay, deal. I agree with that. So passing on over, he's given his entire hand for the past several turns, just trying to find a time where he can avoid disruption, avoid arsenal hate, and play out that glistening steelblade and set up a big turn of his own. But continuing to play on the defensive gives the opportunity to the Vynnset player to maybe just come across over and over again. Now here, though, we do not have the 3 rune chance set up, so things get a good bit more pedestrian on a turn like this. Pumel, there it is. We can still just play out attacks, but it doesn't look like we drew into attacks. It looks like we've honestly drawn into the dreaded Runeblade hand in envelope in darkness.
I am going to
hate that. Then we have a pummel in the arsenal. We've got a Rune Chant Generator card number 1 and 2, I believe. No, one of those is a Putrid Stirrings, and the other one is a Rune Blood Incantation. And is that back card another Putrid Stirrings as well?
I think I'm gonna banish.
I can't quite
Some of
make out
these
that very
cards-
first card. Oh, okay, it's Oath of the Arc-Knight. Okay, Oath of the Arc-Knight is the other. Yeah, so the dreaded non-attack action card hand is floating around.
Some of these cards are just built to be in the arsenal, Pummel being one of them. D-Reacts, obviously, it just feels good when you've got a red Pummel just floating there, just sitting, waiting for that right time to act. Love to see it for sure. We're just waiting. When is Patrick going to find a seam here to just
Right
kind
now.
of get there? Yeah, well, we're not there yet, as it's going to go ahead and create another rune chant.
She's going to play the Rune Blood Incantation floating, I believe, 1 here. Yeah, floating the 1, and that doesn't even allow her to swing the Nebula Blade, unfortunately. Unless she takes the Tunic resource, and she might just do that just to be able to send, some damage across. But we know the Pummel's in the arsenal. We know she can't swing. Let's see if she just... Yep, she's just going to pass. Having that Tunic resource up for a Pummel turn is quite good, but this is the opening that Patrick needed, and unfortunately he has 2 Sink Belows in hand, I believe, so it's not exactly what you would want to see on a big Glistening turn with like D-Reacts in your hand instead, but let's see if he can put together some serious damage. I think he does have perhaps a Singing Steel Blade in hand to couple with it.
Still holding on to the hand over here. Darthia, unfortunately, hasn't necessarily found any kind of margins to put something together to swing that Dawnblade twice. The Dawnblade has really only swung like 4 or 5 times all game, and all on separate turns. You haven't really cobbled together any of that go again, any of that double hit to create any kind of counteraction here, but it's time. This is where it's going to happen over here, as Michelle has opted not really to do anything, but it's time to get busy here with, we're starting with the Glistening Steel Blade, which, again, Darthia specialization, we love to see it. It's going to give go again to that Dawnblade attack, but also, whenever it hits, put a +1 counter on it. This is a massive, massive play. This is where this is going to be a huge thing. And you know, when you see this, oh, it's okay, Glistening Steel Blade is just coming in for 3. Just 3 block it. Just 3 block it. Nothing wrong here. Just 3 block it, Michelle, is what he's kind of hoping for over here. But this is going to be that turning point turn where potentially at the end of this DM Armada, we might see 3 counters on the Dawnblade?
Well, unfortunately, he's drawn into an all-red hand. Well, technically he does have Singing Steel Blade, but that's a card he wanted to play. He drew into 2 red Sink Belows, which is just a backbreaker of a kind of a go-wide turn on a turn where we want to establish counters. He can still threaten that he has more in hand than he actually does, but his best play line here would be like play Singing Steel Blade, paying the last card in hand, going and getting Iron Song response and playing that for 0, so you can go up to 7, and that's about all you can do. So this might be a time where if you calculate that out, you could just say, you're not getting anything out of this, but he probably still walks out of this turn with...
Singing Steel Blade?
Yep, there's
Oh,
he probably
big time.
walks out of this turn with 1 to 2 counters if he chooses to get rid of his courage.
But hey, that's a good start, right? And that's pretty important if you can maintain those counters on the Dawnblade. That basically makes all the future turns a lot easier to convert on. It's kind of the first steps are always the hardest. Definitely the hardest.
Yep, so here we have exactly the line I was just talking about, going and getting the Iron Song response, pushing this up to 7. We do have the go again off of the Glistening Steel Blade. This is going to hit unless she has another D-React, which I don't believe she does. And then you have the decision point of whether or not you want to give up the Courage of Bladehold that does not have any block value taken off of it currently, just to try and get a second counter, which would end up netting a 3rd counter if you swing it. But I don't think he's going to make that play.
Dawnblade +1.
Oh, thank you so much, Samuel L. Jackson, for that cameo with the voiceover right there. We love it. That's a Dawnblade with a +1 counter on it. Now, like we mentioned, the first steps are always going to be the most difficult. You just get your sea legs with that Dawnblade. Now, you have it there. Now, the difference here is that Michelle is going to be clapping back.
Yes.
And that is difficult because if you want to protect that +1 counter, if your 4 cards coalesce just precisely, that means that you have to be on the receiving end for one hell of a poop sandwich. Because, well, Ethan doesn't have the bleep button, but you have to basically digest the onslaught of all this attack that's coming your way in order to protect the Dawnblade coming back.
You said poop sandwich and then digest right afterwards. You gotta be careful with that.
I think it was digest and then
The poop sandwich is what he was going for.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, you did the work, right? Patrick was on the receiving end for so long in order to finally cobble together a turn where that Dawnblade is now getting above rate. It's at the 4. It's at the break point. All of your future swings with it are going to be easier to convert on. But in order to do that, in order to preserve and protect that +1 counter, you're probably taking damage on the return. And Patrick at 19 against something as explosive as Vynnset can be problematic.
This is 13 damage on this turn on the face of it, though. So if you're looking at this and you're going, 13 damage just on the board right now off of the Besiege the Demagon into, the big swing plus the rune chance. And this is smart using the Time Snap potion that can't block, but even just looking at this on the face of it, it's like, yeah, you may have the counter, but I'm putting you on lethal over 2 turns, and I have a pummel in the arsenal, so that's going to end poorly for you both ways.
Oh, I love to see it. I love to see it. Having that Pummel there is going to actually just convert. First of all, you said envelope like 40 times.
I know, and I hated it every single time because the word is not envelope. It's envelop.
No, you're right. It's envelope.
It's neither of those.
Here in this zone, X marks the spot for this bad boy right here.
The shake of the head of like, yeah, I've got to give up a card for this.
We're going to add like kabam, pummel, kaboom.
That's good, Mr. Flake. That's pretty solid.
Some pretty good mouse control right there.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's pretty awesome. But pummel, I know at home this is making everybody quite happy. Look how happy. Look how happy you are. Everyone wants to see the pummels, right?
Put smiley faces on my pummels. It's not a sad thing. Look how happy it is. It's crushing your skull and taking a card. There's nothing wrong there. Nonetheless, it's still a 13-point attack with a pummel chaser on top. All that equipment means absolutely jack squat because it's not just bye-bye life total, not just bye-bye card in hand. It's potentially bye-bye counter on Dawnblade. Patrick has been just on the receiving end here. Michelle has been relentlessly attacking here, and that's the second pummel I think that she's played against them.
It is. She drew into the 2 pummel hand, which is a very scary proposition, but she managed to play 1, arsenal the second, and get value off the second. That's exactly what you want to do. Now here, we had the discard on the hit and run, so there's no go again here unless we hit and we try to use the boots to maintain, or get another counter. But we also don't know what is that card circling in hand? Oh, it's an Iron Song response. So we do have some ways to get over the top of a block, so just be aware and careful of that. Yeah, that is indeed on the bottom of the deck. That pitch does cycle, and let's see how Vynnset responds. Michelle, the Vynnset herself, could consider just trying to cover things up.
There we go. Well, we're going to go ahead and block this out. The Grasp of the Arknight is going to be covering up. Looks like she's going to go for over the top over here, which is a wonderful, like we mentioned, a movie that's starring Sylvester Stallone about arm wrestling. But in this case, it's not just about arm wrestling, friends. It's about just protecting against some of that smoke and mirrors, razzle-dazzle attack action play. But look, Dawnblade lost the counter, and again, you're back to square one. You sort of fell right back down to the bottom of the hill, and it's going to be uphill from now on.
Yeah, so now we have an interesting sticking point because we're playing a 2-card hand as Vynnset. We have the tick up on the Runeblood Incantation, and we dropped in a 4-cost. And 4-cost Runegate is much harder to get to when we're starting out at square one. So we're just going to take the off turn here and generate those rune chants. Take a point of blood debt from Widespread Annihilation and Arsenal into a 5-card hand. The question is, can Patrick use this moment to really capitalize on the tempo? And I think he's got a really good hand to do that. He's got some just absolute powerhouses of cards. Can he pay for them all? He's got Singing Steelblade. He's got Steelblade Supremacy. He's got a Warrior's Valor. And he has, what is the horsey card? What is that one called again?
Spoils of War.
Spoils of War.
There's Warriors of Valor, and there's also a Warriors of Velour, which
get out of here.
Makes it so much softer when you're playing the cards. Nonetheless, that is a Zap Brannigan specialization.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, it's true. Coming down with the Steel Blade Supremacy is going to give the on-hit, which is perhaps the most scary part of the card itself, the Darthia specialization. Giving the buff is good, but the on-hit is truly terrifying. The Spoils of War. One of my favorite sets of all time, Crucible of War, had Spoils of War. And when that set came out, Spoils was the chase card of the set. True first edition, foil Spoils was just gas, absolute gas. But this is the moment that he's trying to take advantage. And you know what? This could very well present some serious damage and possibly even weird lethals that you could just find as the Darthia player.
All right, well, 7 damage. There's go again on this Dawnblade. Unless it hits, though, you cannot swing twice with it. I don't think any of the cards are allowing us to swing twice. There's you got to use the Darthia ability, unless you got some of those cards to come through. Why not? Let's Iron Song response this one, yellow style.
Yep. The yellow Iron Song response coming down. This does not have the buff because there's no card blocking it, so it actually doesn't provide any attack buff because the reprise keyword is not triggered here. A little strange to use it there, but doesn't really matter in this scenario because you do get the hit on the Dawnblade and you can follow it up with continued swings on the sword.
Well, again, when you're
and we have a card draw that we have to hit in the generation of the copper off of the Spoils of War. Let's see if he's got the card draw.
layering the triggers as well.
Okay, there we go. There's the catching. Oh, wow.
Winning blade.
Wow. And you found exactly what you wanted off of the top two in the form of Twinning Blade, which could allow you to swing again.
So 5 damage now left to go. We're going to create the Copper Spoils of War ×2. Wonderful. Dawnblade, again, is just the heart and soul of Darthia, but she is just not at face value when she's playing. It's just not about the Dawnblade. It's about everything that you pump it up with. It's all of the attack reactions. It's all of the non-attacks that precede it necessarily. Michelle now did have a comfortable lead, and we were talking and we saw it in chat, you know, like you can just take some of this damage and then close it out. But ultimately, we can see that just the perfect recipe of cards can potentially bring you back down to earth.
Well, I mean, let's take a look back at the board state, because we can also see he's got a Twinning Blade. He has no resources floating. He has a 5 on the stack here. It costs him nothing to swing Dawnblade. He has the capability of giving this go again. He can Twinning Blade. He also needs the Refraction Bolters, I believe. If he wanted to, he could do that in the other order, but this is a huge turn.
I will draw a card from the...
There it is. Drawing off of the Steelblade Supremacy trigger, drew into a red, I think. Red Warrior's Valor. But you're going to send it on over.
+1.
Oh, and he's got an Overpower in hand. I think he's going to pitch the Overpower here to pay for the final activate. Well, the activation perhaps of Brave Forge Bracers might be a great choice if you got the extra resources for it. And then you can send that Dawnblade one more time. Maybe off of the back of Warrior's Valor buff as well, if you have every resource available to you.
She still has equipment block if necessary. You can toss creepers. You've got an extra block from the grasp. I mean, if you don't care about the resource that's floating on your tunic, you've got potentially 3 equipment block if you need it, which can sometimes just round out some of those you know, if you're predicting a +3 off of something. But let's keep going here. We are not done. Michelle down to 13. This is that big turn that Patrick was hoping for. The problem is that Patrick may have been hoping for this like 3 or 4 turns ago. He's at 10 here. So if Michelle is opting to just take a lot of this damage, if she can convert, it might put Patrick on the back foot here. But Dawnblade has a counter on it. We're going to go ahead and continue onward with a 7-attack Dawnblade.
This is the style of, or like this is the turn. This is the type of turn that Darthia players dream of. Lining up Steelblade Supremacies. Your opponent's just like pot committed to no blocks, and you just get to do the crazy stuff. But there's the block on the equipment, keeping up the creepers so that we can maybe line up a non-attack, gain an extra action point, and send 2 big attacks on our own turn. I think Michelle's literally just thinking only about, I'm going to stay alive to whatever point I can. I could be at 1, and I'm going to send my entire hand at you and make you deal with everything. Otherwise, you die on the next turn.
What's fascinating here as well is no matter what Michelle wants to commit to this particular hand, she's already got 5 damage in the pocket in the shape of those 5 rune chants.
Yeah.
So just 1 card and a swing of anything is representing 5 damage already. So that's already half of Patrick's life total that she's got banked away, already locked and loaded in the crosshairs here. She's going to go ahead and banish a card with the Vynnset ability, bringing the rune chant up as well with the rune chant incantation to bring that to 7.
She had the Deathly Wail. No wonder you full keep this hand. Deathly Wail is the nuts right here because it allows you to close the chain and generate more rune chants. Can she follow up by generating enough rune chants to create or to be able to play that widespread? Yep, she's going to be able to play. I'll say it for you. Envelope in Darkness. You're welcome. To start with the Deathly Wail, yes, this is going to be a huge amount of damage, and she might even be able to follow it up with Widespread Annihilation here on this turn.
going to be a massive turn here for Michelle, who just took an absolute walloping on the back of that Dawnblade. That Dawnblade now with 2 counters on it, feeling nice and mighty. The difference is that if Patrick can have another opportunity to swing it, it's a whole different thing. So we've got cards in hand.
Oh, Invert Existence is a card in hand, but no attack actions in this deck. So that is a basically just a blue pitch, like dead card. But how sick would that be if you had the like one of Nourishing Emptiness waiting for you to banish for the lethal?
8 rune chance. Deathly Whale.
8 and 8.
Yeah, I love this. The whole like 8 and 8. Okay. Well, we're gonna have to deal with some of this over here because Patrick, unfortunately, is we got to see if he's caught without blues in hand. It can be very dangerous in terms of dealing with it. It looks like he did find some, so he's going to be eating up some of these rune chants. 2 of them are going to leak through. So life was lost here, which means that, well, you're going to create some of the more rune chants based off the Deathly Whale.
Yeah. So because, and I believe she played Envelop in Darkness so that she could then pay the life as well. I think she did pay the life so that she'd create 2 rune chants off the chain close here, which is fantastic because 8 rune chants is just too much to block completely out. And it's just the way you can kind of try and close this game out by creating 2 rune chants here and maybe sending another attack.
So you're blocking 8.
Blocking 8.
At this juncture in the game, again, there's not much margin for error. Both players really want to make sure that they are just getting all their ducks in a row to just send this one home. Michelle at 1 and 2. Patrick also at 1 and 2. Both players here. This is the best performing Vynnset at the tournament so far. So unfortunately, the Vynsets have not necessarily been as dangerous as some have perhaps liked, but hey, there's still we got a 3-0 Arachne today, and that's already, I think we're playing with house money when we got a 3-0 Arachne at the tournament. But Michelle here,
here's
the
the
activating creepers. Yes, TLC said creep back in 1998.
And look, another Envelop in Darkness is going to generate another rune chant. It's going to give another buff, and it's going to allow us to keep on going. Gaining an action point as well because of the go again resolution.
So I'm taking the one.
You want to hear an incredibly funny story that I'm not allowed to say?
Yep.
I typed in envelope into the card finder, as in like with the final E, and no,
Did it not pull up?
no cards
I
came
have
up.
to take the
Oh wow! Oh
no.
no!
So what you're saying is it's not Envelope in Darkness?
I'm gonna remove that part from the VOD, just FYI, but I thought you'd find it funny.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Thanks for that.
Can you
story.
look up Pumel?
Pummel.
It sounds like a after bathroom fragrance that you spray.
Now, closing the chain there does create those rune chants and should allow you to have a couple of rune chants on the field now. Maybe she did not pay. I believe she did though pay the life. Nevertheless, having a rune chant stacked up here and your opponent at basically just draw and pass scenarios, you have another shot and another crack at it, and now you've drawn into one of the best cards in the deck in Shadow Puppetry because it gives unconditional go again. We also can drop what looks like a widespread ruin or that Deathly Whale, which is even better. That Deathly Whale is super good in this scenario. Either of those feel great to drop in. As long as we have the resources, we can give it go again off of the Shadow Puppetry. Threaten and on hit +1, banish the top card of our deck, keep going, blow up our opponent, make them question their decisions.
All right, as it stands, ladies and gentlemen, Patrick at 2 life left, Michelle at 6. 1 rune chant floating over here. There's been some very big turns by both players, frankly. There was that big turn that Patrick had about 2 turns ago. Swinging with that Dawnblade multiple times, adding the counter, finally getting some work done. Michelle had multiple turns of like 6 or 7 rune chants plus a fat attack as well. She's been laying it on thick here. Both players have been defensive, have been taking it, and ultimately we're at this point of the match here, 16 and change left in this 4th round of the Battle Hardened here in Milwaukee.
And there's the Shadow Puppetry. I think you always have to pay the life here. You go to 5 life, but it guarantees a rune chant goes through. You just do that 2 turns. Over the next 2 turns, force them to block out, and you just naturally win the game. but paying the life on a Shadow non-attack is part of Vynnset's ability and allows you to put an unblockable rune chant basically on the stack. And we have 2 of those rune chants, which means Widespread Ruin is capable of coming in at the Rune Gate effect. That is going to send 2 rune chants, 1 unblockable, and 6 damage plus 1, making it 7 total, thanks to the Shadow Puppetry.
Nice.
Yeah, using the go again.
Well, I mean, Shadow Puppetry is going to do that. That's a card from Monarch, and that was a very, very important card back in Chain days, but also now here as well. Shadow Puppetry, a great Majestic card from Monarch.
2 in hand.
Adding the Shadow action, just giving the next attack action +1 and go again. Very important.
Rune chant to get rid of that.
Covering up the rune chant, because if you don't, you lose the game on the spot, and then looking at 7 and just having to give you the farm and then following up with Deathly
nasty.
Wail, and that's going to do it. Yeah, looking at it and realizing, oh, yes, I'm already dead. Unfortunate for Patrick, but Vynnset flexing on everybody.